This is a compilation of material I have spoken to and written about in the past, summarizing an intact version of ancient cubit rod measures. You can skip this video series. I've left links below to the PDF sub. Cubit Rod Composition, Part 1, Introduction. General topics, the thought process behind the cubit rod. In graduates, the standard length of a digit cubit would correspond in parallel with that of inches, yards, and millimeter meters because a cubit rod hierarchy consists of all these measures. More specifically, the millimeter, meter, yard, inch, and their fractions of in a radial display. SI units, millimeters, and the inch system was derived from and integral to a cubit rod. It is curious how mankind rescripted cubit structure through the ages. Ancient wisdom, as well as astronomy, divinities, the Egyptian and Mayan calendars, prophet forecasting, and most notably stonemason mathematics, held theorems absolutely true from one scale. In general, cubit scales are a theory of everything, a final theory in the description of nature. Ancient cubits once were a number unification theorem, with an explanation found in the progression of cubit rod ratio. 7, 28, 4 Egyptian, 4, 16, 4 Sumerian, 6, 24, 4 Biblical, 9, 36, 4 Babylonian, the last evolved cubit rod ratio from 539 BC. One can see an advancement in the incorporation of the circle-formed 36-unit rod of Babylon, with each of the 36 unit digits in 10-degree increments for radial 360-degree calculation. This is in parallel to ancient Egyptian astronomy having 36 groups of stars, small constellations. Every 10 days a new constellation would have a heliacal rising. A total of 36 decans were observed and were presided over by a deity throughout the year. For thousands of years, the hour and the ancient calendars were calibrated to the degree. The last evolved cubit rod of Babylon simplified these radial mathematics from above, the heavens, to below, the earth, before it was removed from mankind's timeline. Mankind's inheritance is above. So, did the ancients have a mathematical unification theorem to all is number? The answer is yes. One unit of measure, cubits, produced a lot of divine societies and the plagiarized sacred geometry that drove them. More relevant, in the years after the fall of Egypt and Babylon, 525 to 539 BCE, the divine sect of Pythagoras in his endeavor. Pythagoras, instead of using root-length numbers as a basis, squared the right triangle from whole numbers up. Why recompose? Well, it is written that Cyrus, the conqueror of Egypt and Babylon, met with Pythagoras and would have executed Pythagoras if he kept cubits in the forefront. Cubits would have been viewed as a method of undermining Cyrus's rule, thus producing a secret society. The one and only thing that united the ancient world of Egypt and Babylonia was the philosophy of Thoth's cubits. All of Pythagorean's work, from right-angle theorem, musical universus, and Pythagoras' musical scale, was accomplished from one unit of rule, cubits, the math of the previous kings. It is only logical that Pythagoras studied with the Egyptian priest and the Babylonians for years with full knowledge of a cubit rod. Before furthering this article, I would like to answer the question, why was cubits of various lengths employed in many parts of the world in antiquity? This is because the length is broken down from a unit. A cubit could be assigned any standard length of measure. The standard unit only sets scale. For example, root 2 will always be the hypotenuse means of a square, and root 3 will always be the diagonal means of a cubit. And in other words, the square segment set to a unit is all that's needed to set these constants in motion. These constants have been here long before mankind. Mankind only sets the unit to define this reality.